The narrative of Arman Tsarukyan is becoming one of the most compelling and relentless in all of combat sports, a story defined not by waiting for opportunity, but by forging it through sheer activity across any battlefield that presents itself. While the UFC lightweight title picture remains in a state of suspended animation, with an interim champion yet to be crowned and the undisputed king, Ilia Topuria, attending to personal matters, Tsarukyan has refused to be held hostage by the promotion's timeline. Instead, he has authored his own grueling schedule, transforming 2025 from a year of devastating setback into a showcase of versatile dominance, a mission that now catapults him into a high-stakes debut in the Real American Freestyle promotion to kick off 2026. His journey this past year is a testament to a fighter's resilience. The crushing blow came early, a knee injury that ripped away the coveted title shot against Islam Makhachev at UFC 311. Many fighters would have retreated, focused solely on recovery. Tsarukyan did the opposite. He launched a two-front campaign to prove his worth. In the MMA arena, he made a thunderous return at UFC Qatar, dismantling the dangerous veteran Dan Hooker with a performance that screamed title contender to anyone watching. Simultaneously, he embarked on a parallel conquest in the global grappling circuit, submitting legends and contenders alike. His victories over former UFC champion Benson Henderson, Bellator stalwart Patrick Pitbull, and Makhachev Zainikov were statements of technical prowess. He capped this off just days ago by capturing a championship in the ACBJJ promotion, proving his ground game is not just effective for MMA, but elite on its own purest terms. Now, as the calendar turns, he immediately pivots to a new and fascinating challenge. His matchup at ARF 5 against Lance Palmer is a deliberate dive into deep waters. Palmer is not a tune-up. He is a two-time PFL champion and, more critically, a four-time NCAA Division I NAIA All-American wrestler from Ohio State University. This fight, under a specialized freestyle rule set, is a direct test of Tsarukyan's core strength against one of the most credentialed American wrestlers of the past decade. It is a bold move that underscores his confidence and his unique philosophy to stay sharp, seek the toughest challenges available, and accumulate experience that money can't buy and time in a UFC waiting room can't provide. By sharing the ARF 5 card with attractions like Yoel Romero vs. Bo Nickal and Colby Covington vs. Luke Rockhold, Tsarukyan ensures his skills are displayed on a major stage. Each victory outside the UFC octagon, whether in jiu-jitsu or freestyle wrestling, serves as another data point, another argument for his inevitability. He is not just staying busy, he is building an irrefutable case. While others talk about being ready for a title shot, Arman Tsarukyan is proving it, round by round, submission by submission, against world-class opposition in any discipline that will have him. When the UFC's lightweight logjam finally breaks, the man who spent his waiting period conquering every other arena will be standing there, not just ready, but hardened, polished, and utterly unforgiving. The rocket-fueled ascent of Paddy Pimblett through the UFC's lightweight ranks has never been a subtle affair, a blend of undeniable charisma, improving skill, and the promotional machinery operating at full tilt. Now, with an interim title shot against the legendary Gaethje at UFC 324, that ascent has reached its most critical and controversial juncture, drawing skepticism from seasoned veterans who view the scramble for gold through a more cynical lens. Former UFC champion Luke Rockhold has become a vocal critic of this specific push, articulating a sentiment shared by a faction of fans and purists, that the interim title, in this context, feels less like a sporting necessity and more like a strategic vehicle engineered for the baddie's stardom. In a candid interview with Submission Radio, Rockhold pulled no punches, framing the upcoming main event as a transparent attempt by the UFC to fast-track Pimblett into championship relevance. "I think they're trying to do anything they can to put little Paddy into a title situation," Rockhold stated, his words highlighting the perceived artificiality of the stakes.
His criticism zeroes in on the inherent paradox of an interim belt, especially when the undisputed champion, Ilia Topuria, is sidelined for personal reasons rather than competitive ones. Rockhold points to Gaethje's own veteran perspective as evidence, noting he knows that none of that really means much to him because he wants to be the real champion. This draws a sharp contrast with Pimblett's embrace of the championship narrative, a narrative Rockhold implies is prefabricated. They're doing anything they can to get Paddy the best matchups to be a champion and bring that love back to the UK, he concluded, framing the fight less as a meritocratic contest and more as a business decision aimed at cultivating a regional hero. This critique lands in the complex space between sporting integrity and entertainment economics. There's no denying Pimblett's draw. His connection with the UK fanbase is electric, and his fights consistently deliver drama. His skills have visibly evolved, transforming him from a pure prospect into a legitimate threat. However, the leap from entertaining contender to interim title challenger, bypassing other established names in a stacked division, naturally raises eyebrows. It creates a compelling drama of its own, the beloved, polarizing star being handed an opportunity that seems, to some, disproportionate to his resume, against a battle-hardened warrior in Gaethje, who represents the ultimate gatekeeper of legitimacy. Rockhold's comments underscore a deeper tension in modern MMA. The interim title, once a tool for divisions log-jammed by injury, has increasingly become a promotional device to create parallel storylines in main events. In this case, it serves a dual purpose. It keeps the lightweight division moving in Topuria's absence, and it places Pimblett in the highest profile possible scenario to either cement his status as a true elite fighter or to expose his rise as premature. For Gaethje, it's another chance to add a tangible belt to his incredible legacy, even if he, as Rockhold suggests, likely views it as a stepping stone back to the undisputed crown. For Pimblett, it is the ultimate validation and the moment to silence critics like Rockhold by doing the unthinkable. The fight, therefore, is layered with more than just championship implications. It is a referendum on merit versus marketability, on whether the best matchups can indeed forge a real champion, and on whether the relentless noise surrounding the baddie can survive the brutal, honest silence that Gaethje is always so determined to bring. The relentless engine of Aljamain Sterling's ambition shows no signs of slowing down, even as the landscape around him shifts and the sands of time continue to fall. Now firmly entrenched in the featherweight division after his reign as bantamweight king, Sterling is issuing a bold and broad challenge to the 145-pound elite, his voice carrying the urgency of a man who knows that the window for achieving a historic two-division championship is narrowing with each passing season. At 36 years old, with a solid but not flawless 2-1 record since moving up, Sterling is not interested in a slow climb or gentle reintroduction. He is, as his recent words make explosively clear, in the business of fast-tracking his way to legacy, and he's calling for the biggest possible fights to light that path. In a characteristically direct clip, Sterling laid out his hit list with the precision of a general mapping a campaign. He didn't target prospects or fringe contenders. He aimed straight for the heart of the division's most compelling and dangerous names. First, he zeroed in on the surging Lerone Murphy, the unbeaten UK phenom on the cusp of his own title ambitions, offering to venture into enemy territory for a showdown in February or March. It's a call-out that demonstrates both Sterling's confidence and his understanding of the big fight game. Meeting a rising star in his hometown is a high-risk, high-reward gambit that would instantly capture global attention. But Sterling didn't stop there. He also named the explosive and unorthodox former interim champion Yair Rodriguez, a stylistic nightmare for anyone in a fight guaranteed to deliver fireworks from bell to bell. Perhaps most pointedly, he revisited the ghost of his most recent and controversial outing, a split-decision loss to the undefeated Movsar Evloev. "I won that fight," Sterling declared, reframing the setback not as a defeat, but as an injustice to be corrected, a score to be settled to remove all doubt about his place in the pecking order. The underlying message in all of this is one of pressing necessity, wrapped in the brash packaging of funkmaster showmanship. "I'm 36 and I ain't getting younger. Let's do this shit," he stated, cutting through the usual promotional platitudes with raw reality. He is here to make money, to chase greatness, and to do it against the very best the division has to offer, right now. With champion Alexander Volkanovski occupied with the defense against Diego Lopes, Sterling isn't willing to wait idly. He is seeking to create his own mandatory status by vaulting over the competition in a single, violent bound. Whether it's silencing the London crowd against Murphy, trading spinning attacks with Yair, or proving the judges wrong against Evloev, Sterling is broadcasting that he is ready for the deepest waters and the brightest lights. It's a high-stakes strategy from a veteran who knows that at this stage of a storied career, playing it safe is the riskiest move of all.
A seismic wave has just crashed through the combat sports world as reigning UFC welterweight champion Islam Makhachev has made a monumental announcement to Russian media. His training camp has officially begun for a legacy-defining super fight against former longtime champion Kamaru Usman, targeted for UFC 327 in Dubai. This is the clash fans have dreamed of and debated for years, a true champion versus former champion megafight that pits the stifling Sambo-based mastery of Makhachev against the historic wrestling-dominant reign of the Nigerian Nightmare. After moving up and capturing the 170-pound crown from Jack Doherty, Makhachev is not content with a conventional defense. He is chasing greatness by aiming to dismantle the very man who ruled the division with an iron fist for years. Usman, a fighter forever etched in welterweight history, has been vocal about his desire to reclaim the throne, and now he gets his chance against the most daunting possible version of the new king. This is more than a title fight. It is a collision of eras, a stylistic puzzle of the highest order, and the kind of marquee event that makes UFC's event in UFC 327 an instant historic occasion. Adding a layer of surreal and captivating spectacle to an already stacked card, the viral sensation and musical artist John Pork is confirmed for a showdown on the same night against the surging, violent force of Manuel Torres. This booking is a bold and unpredictable stroke, placing the internet's most beloved porcine crooner directly in the path of a dangerous, knockout-hungry UFC lightweight prospect. Torres, known for his ferocious power and aggressive style, represents the ultimate reality check for the crossover phenomenon. The matchup defies all conventional logic, ensuring a frenetic and global spotlight that will draw eyes from every corner of pop culture and hardcore fandom alike. It is a spectacle within a spectacle, promising either a shocking moment of viral glory or a brutal reminder of the sport's uncompromising nature. Together, these announcements transform UFC 327 into a landmark event of unprecedented scope. In the main event, the purity of elite martial arts competition reaches its zenith as Makhachev and Usman battle for welterweight supremacy and a permanent place in the pantheon of all-time greats. On the very same card, the modern age of entertainment and combat sports intersect in the most audacious way imaginable with the John Pork experiment. From the highest-stakes championship clash to the most viral curiosity the Octagon has ever seen, UFC 327 in Dubai is poised to be an unforgettable night where history, sport, and culture collide under the bright lights. The landscape of the UFC's lightweight division has been decisively shaped by a single monumental announcement, an interim championship bout pitting the legendary violence of Justin Gaethje against the meteoric rise of Paddy Pimblett, set to headline the promotion's inaugural event on Paramount Plus on January 24, 2026 at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. This is more than just a fight. It is a collision of eras, narratives, and styles, all amplified by the gleaming, if contested, symbol of interim gold.
the immediate reaction from sportsbooks has been unequivocal, casting Pimblett not just as a favorite, but as a decisive one, with opening odds painting a clear picture of market faith in the ascendant star over the established warrior. Across major platforms, the baddie opened as a commanding favorite, with lines fluctuating between -205 and -230, translating to an implied probability of roughly 67% to 70% in his favor. In contrast, Gaethje, one of the most celebrated action fighters in the sport's history, finds himself in the unfamiliar role of a clear underdog, with odds ranging from +160 to +185. This initial assessment, showing minimal early movement as both retail and professional money aligns with the bookmaker's view, speaks volumes. It reflects the potent combination of Pimblett's unblemished 7-0 UFC record, his streak of 5 consecutive performance bonuses, and the devastating momentum of his latest victory, a third-round stoppage of the formidable Michael Chandler at UFC 314. Gaethje's path, while respected, tells a different tale. A veteran's ledger, showing 3 wins in his last 4, but also bearing the memory of a brutal knockout loss to Max Holloway at the monumental UFC 300, and a most recent outing that went the distance against Rafael Fiziev. The stakes here are profoundly elevated, extending far beyond a main event victory. The winner secures not just a belt, but a guaranteed unification bout with the undisputed champion Ilia Topuria in the summer of 2026. Topuria's withdrawal due to personal matters created this vacuum, and the UFC's choice to fill it with this particular matchup has itself become a storyline, drawing public frustration from top-ranked contender Arman Tsarukyan, who saw his own claims for interim consideration overlooked. This context injects an additional layer of urgency and legitimacy into the contest. It is a direct pipeline to the ultimate prize. The clash itself is a study in compelling contrasts. Gaethje, the embodiment of refined chaos, represents the old guard's last greatest stand, a man who has built a legacy on walking through hell to drag opponents into his own kind of purgatory, where every exchange is a potential ending. Pimblett represents the new wave, a fighter whose confidence is as potent as his evolving, well-rounded skills, a charismatic force who has finished fights with both slick submissions and crushing ground and pound. The betting lines may heavily favor the youth and momentum of Pimblett, but they cannot quantify the heart, experience, and catastrophic power of Gaethje. This is the essence of the drama awaiting Las Vegas. The market's cold calculus versus the unpredictable, often brutal poetry of the fight itself. On January 24th, under the new banner of Paramount Plus, one man's hype will be validated, or one man's legacy will be spectacularly reaffirmed, as the road to Ilia Topuria is paved with interim gold.
The specter of a future beyond the octagon is now taking a tangible shape in Robert Whittaker's mind as the former UFC middleweight champion openly contemplates a fascinating pivot to the boxing ring once his storied mixed martial arts journey reaches its conclusion. Whittaker, who once reigned supreme over the UFC's 185-pound division and still commands immense respect as one of the most perilous outs in the weight class, acknowledges that at 35 years of age, the horizon of his MMA career is inevitably drawing nearer. Yet, rather than signaling a retreat from combat sports altogether, this approaching horizon seems to be opening a new door, one that leads to the storied and disciplined world of the sweet science. During a reflective moment on his MMA Arcade podcast, Whittaker delved into this possible future with a tone of genuine intrigue, his words pointing toward a path that has become increasingly traveled by notable UFC alumni. He expressed a clear interest in the idea, particularly the modern phenomenon of established MMA names transitioning directly into high-profile boxing contests, bypassing the traditional grueling circuit that aspiring pure boxers must endure. For Whittaker, the appeal is multifaceted, a compelling blend of fresh competitive challenge, the pure enjoyment of striking he has always cherished, and the undeniable financial opportunities that such crossover events now present.
He sees it as a venture that would not only keep him fit and engaged, but would also offer a stimulating new chapter, a stark and refreshing contrast to the multifaceted demands of MMA. This contemplation is undoubtedly fueled by the visible successes of his predecessors. The recent victory of the legendary Anderson Silva, who at 50 years old secured a stunning second-round TKO over fellow UFC champion Tyron Woodley on the undercard of the Jake Paul vs. Anthony Joshua event, serves as a potent source of inspiration. Silva's graceful and effective transition into boxing has demonstrated that the skills honed in the UFC cage can translate with spectacular results, providing a blueprint and a confidence boost for a striker of Whittaker's caliber. It sparks a compelling question about what the Reaper, with his impeccable timing, slick footwork, and devastating left hand, could accomplish in a domain dedicated solely to the art of pugilism. For now, however, Whittaker's immediate focus remains on the UFC's middleweight division, where he currently holds the number 9 ranking. His last appearance was a hard-fought split decision loss to Reinier de Ridder back in July, a result that surely fuels his current competitive fire. While the specifics of his next MMA bout are still awaiting announcement, this period of anticipation is clearly also a time of forward-looking projection. The idea of lacing up the boxing gloves someday adds an intriguing layer to the narrative of his fighting career, suggesting that the final bell in the UFC will not be the end of his story in combat sports, but rather an intermission before an enthralling new act begins.
Even in the wake of a crushing loss that saw his historic championship reign come to an end, the relentless engine of Merab Dvalishvili's spirit and the monumental scale of his 2025 campaign have been rightfully honored, as the former bantamweight king has been named MMA Junkie's Male Fighter of the Year. It is a testament not just to victory, but to the awe-inspiring activity, ambition, and sheer toughness that defined his year, a 12-month odyssey that saw him cement his legacy, chase an unprecedented record, and ultimately fall in the final chapter, yet still stand tall as the year's most defining competitor. Dvalishvili's 2025 was a masterpiece of relentless pace and elite performance. He began by solving one of the division's most puzzling riddles, outworking the highly touted Umar Nurmagomedov to a unanimous decision at UFC 311. Just months later, he entered a career-defining rematch with the flashy Sean O'Malley at UFC 316. And in a stunning display of his evolving game, he didn't just win, he submitted Suga in the third round, silencing doubters and solidifying his rule. Not content to rest, he then turned around to dismantle another top-tier contender in Corey Sandhagen at UFC 320, showcasing the dizzying cardio and pressure that made the machine more than a nickname. It was a physical reality for his opponents. His audacious quest to secure an unheard-of fourth title defense in a single calendar year led him to a fateful rematch with the ever-dangerous Petr Yan at UFC 323. There, the streak and the title were snapped as Yan reclaimed gold in a hard-fought battle. Yet even in defeat, the magnitude of Dvalishvili's effort could not be dimmed. As MMA Junkie noted, he had built such an insurmountable lead in the Fighter of the Year race through his first 3 triumphs that the final loss could not overshadow the achievement. Their caption captured it perfectly. He maintained it despite closing an unforgettable 2025 with a loss. Upon learning of the honor, a gracious Dvalishvili took to Instagram to express his gratitude, simply stating, "Thanks so much. I am truly blessed and appreciate all of you." The recognition was echoed by peers and personalities, from model Nina Marie Danieli's congratulations to former champion Chris Weidman's emphatic endorsement, who called it a no-brainer given the quality of opponents Dvalishvili faced in their primes. True to his nature, the machine is already whirring back to life, his sights set on immediate redemption. He has vowed to run back the trilogy with Yan in 2026, seeking to settle a rivalry now deadlocked at 1 win apiece. Furthermore, recent footage of him sparring with lightweight champion Ilia Topuria hints at a fighter not wallowing in defeat, but one seeking the sharpest possible tools for a quick and furious return. For Merab Dvalishvili, 2025 was a year of glorious conquest and painful setback, a narrative of incredible highs and a sobering low, all forged through a willingness to fight anyone, anytime.
That fearless philosophy has earned him not just a trophy, but the profound respect of the sport, and it has already set the stage for the next relentless chapter. The world of Ilia Topuria exists in a fascinating, self-created dichotomy. On one side, there is the reigning UFC lightweight champion, officially on a hiatus as he tends to pressing and private family matters, a circumstance that has, understandably, granted him a measure of space and patience from the promotion and the fighting world at large. On the other side, there is El Matador, the fiercely confident and provocatively outspoken persona who continues to dominate headlines from the sidelines, launching verbal barbs at the division's elite and weaving grand narratives for his future. This dual existence has now prompted a pointed question from one of the sport's most influential power brokers, as Islam Makhachev's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, publicly questions the sincerity of Topuria's stated retreat from the spotlight. In a recent post on social media, Abdelaziz articulated a growing sentiment of confusion and impatience, everybody giving this guy space and respect to resolve his family problems, and should be, he began, acknowledging the proper deference given to personal matters. But when he come out talking about Khabib, Islam, Arman for no reason, and he's not even fighting, I'm not sure if people give him a pass anymore. The critique cuts to the heart of a modern promotional tension. Can a champion truly be absent if he remains the most vocal presence in the conversation? Topuria's recent X-rated dismissal of Arman Tsarukyan's title credentials following months of taunts directed at the now welterweight champion Islam Makhachev feels less like a fighter in repose and more like one actively shaping his next chapters from a distance. This strategic self-promotion unfolds against a backdrop of a division forced to move on without him. With Topuria's return timeline ambiguous, the UFC has instituted an interim lightweight title fight between Justin and Paddy Pimblett at UFC 324, a move that simultaneously keeps the weight class active and creates a potential foil or a mandatory challenger for Topuria upon his return. Yet, while the division's machinery grinds forward, Topuria's words pull the focus back to his own grand designs, seemingly bypassing the interim title path altogether to eye legacy-defining clashes, be it with Makhachev in a champion versus champion super fight, or by dismissing contenders like Tsarukyan as unworthy. The underlying question Abdelaziz voices is one of competitive integrity versus promotional genius. Is Topuria leveraging his hiatus to selectively build megafights on his own terms, avoiding the procedural risks of a more active defense schedule? His unbeaten record and stunning knockout of Charles Oliveira to win the belt grant him immense leverage, but that capital is not infinite. As the interim title is contested and other contenders like Tsarukyan rack up wins, the patience for a champion who fights only on the microphone may begin to wear thin. Topuria's in-cage prowess is unquestionable. His victories over legends like Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway at featherweight, followed by his lightweight conquest, prove his elite status. But the game outside the cage follows different rules. By continuing to engage in verbal warfare while remaining physically absent, he risks the narrative shifting from a respected champion dealing with adversity to a calculating star picking his spots. When El Matador finally does return, he will bring with him not only the undisputed championship gold, but also the heightened expectations and scrutinized intentions that his own provocative words have so carefully and perhaps perilously cultivated.
The chaotic and often absurd world of internet provocation collided head-on with the uncompromising reality of a veteran fighter's instincts this past Friday in Miami, resulting in a backstage melee that has since ignited conversations about respect, personal safety, and the dangerous games played for online clout. At the center of it stood former UFC heavyweight champion Andrei Arlovski,
a man who has spent decades in the most punishing arenas of combat sports, who found himself targeted by streamer Jack Doherty, an influencer whose entire brand is built on deliberately bumping into strangers before retreating behind the protection of his security. This time, however, the calculated stunt met an uncalculated response as Doherty and his crew learned the hard way that Arlovski is not someone who would simply play the role of a passive prop for their content. In the wake of the scuffle, which erupted in the bowels of the Kaseya Center following the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, Arlovski took to Instagram to deliver a pointed and principled statement, framing his actions not as aggression but as essential defense. He firmly rejected the notion that he beat up anyone, instead characterizing his response as a necessary act to stop the threat after he, his wife, his child, and a friend were allegedly threatened by the group. For Arlovski, this was a matter of fundamental duty, the reaction any man would have when faced with a perceived danger to his family. His words painted a clear line between viral antics and real-world consequences, suggesting the influencer and his entourage fundamentally misunderstood the person they were attempting to engage. Multiple videos from the incident, likely sourced from Doherty's own wireless microphone, tell a frantic story. They show the initial deliberate bump, followed by Arlovski's immediate and forceful refusal to tolerate the game. While Doherty can be heard repeatedly yelling "chill," members of his crew were visibly seen throwing punches at the former champion, who responded in kind with the composed ferocity of a seasoned professional, ultimately knocking one assailant to the ground. Arlovski later reflected on the bizarre encounter, theorizing he was selected as a target for what they assumed would be easy content for YouTube, perhaps because he was older or appeared to be outnumbered by 3 idiots and a big bodyguard. He admitted to a lapse in awareness, noting he saw the group but didn't pay them immediate mind, a lesson learned in the age of ambush entertainment. Crucially, Arlovski credited his wife with de-escalating the initial spark before he truly lost his temper, acknowledging he was about to snap in those heated moments. The entire confrontation was over in less than a minute, with Arlovski departing via elevator and Doherty making a swift retreat, but the aftermath lingers. With a fighter's pride still stinging, Arlovski revealed he did absorb one sneaky sucker punch during the fray, a blow he didn't accept. So firm was his indignation that he openly volunteered to settle the matter in a more formal setting, offering to fight Doherty's bodyguard if promoters like Jake Paul wanted to make it happen. His final assessment was a succinct summary of the dynamic. Doherty, successful in his usual tactic of hiding behind his guard and running away, had finally picked a target who turned the tables, transforming a planned piece of viral content into a stark lesson in real-world accountability.
The storied O2 Arena in London, long a cauldron of passionate support for its homegrown fighters, is set to ignite once again under the bright lights of a main event that promises technical brilliance and high-stakes tension. According to reports, the March 21st UFC London card will be headlined by a pivotal featherweight clash between the undefeated grappling maestro Movsar Evloev and the surging explosive force of Manchester's own Lerone Murphy. This pairing is a matchmaker's masterstroke, pitting 2 of the division's most disciplined and dangerous contenders against one another in a classic style clash with immediate implications for the crowded title picture. For Movsar Evloev, this represents both a formidable challenge and a golden opportunity to solidify his claim as the next in line. Carrying a pristine professional record, including a dominant 8-0 run in the UFC, Evloev has built his reputation on an unshakable foundation of suffocating wrestling and control. He is a technician of the highest order, a grinder who systematically dismantles opponents with relentless pressure, tactical takedowns, and an airtight defensive system that has made him seem nearly impossible to hurt, let alone defeat. A main event slot in a major European market is the platform he needs to transition from being a respected problem to an undeniable attraction. But standing across from him will be a man who specializes in solving puzzles with sudden, violent force. That man is Lerone the Miracle Murphy,
whose nickname speaks to a resilience that has now blossomed into championship-caliber prowess. Unbeaten in his own right and riding a wave of momentum in the UFC, Murphy presents a starkly different threat. Where Evloev applies constant, draining pressure, Murphy operates with chilling efficiency and fight-ending power. His striking is sharp, powerful, and deceptively versatile, capable of ending a bout with a single well-placed shot. Fighting in his home country, with the energy of the O2 crowd fueling him, Murphy will have the chance to deliver the most significant statement of his career, to prove that the dynamite in his hands can freeze even the most relentless advancing force. The narrative layers here are profoundly compelling. It is the immovable object of Evloev's flawless record against the irresistible force of Murphy's ascendant power. It is a test of whether Evloev's grinding, systematic approach can weather the early storm and impose his will on a confident striker in his own backyard. Conversely, it asks whether Murphy can maintain his discipline and find the openings to defend the takedown and land the fight-altering blow that has eluded all of Evloev's previous opponents. Beyond the technical intrigue, the stakes are crystal clear. The winner thrusts himself directly into the upper echelon of the 145-pound division, potentially just one victory away from a long-coveted title shot. As the rumors solidify into reality, the anticipation for this London main event will only grow. It is a fight that caters to both the purist, who appreciates the chess match of grappling versus striking, and the enthusiast who yearns for the explosive moment that can rewrite a division's hierarchy. When the cage door closes at the O2 on March 21st, it will not just be two men competing, it will be two contrasting philosophies of combat colliding, with the roaring approval of a nation and the promise of glory hanging in the balance.
Jorge Masvidal has come out swinging, defending his former rival Kamaru Usman and slamming Ian Machado Gary's recent trash talk in a fiery new podcast appearance. Gamebred, never one to hold back, offered a no-holds-barred breakdown of the current welterweight chaos, calling out Gary's respect for history while questioning his readiness for the true elite of the division. The drama started when Gary, after his win over Belal Muhammad, dismissed Usman as an irrelevant has-been, unworthy of a title shot against new champion Islam Makhachev. This drew the ire of Masvidal, who, despite his two losing title fights against Usman, launched a passionate defense of the former king's legacy. Him calling Usman has-been is so crazy because you've never even been, brother. You're nothing. Masvidal shot back on Death Row MMA. He targeted Gary's biggest win, arguing it came with a significant asterisk. You beat Belal, but you had to eye-poke him twice to do that. It wasn't like you stopped him. Masvidal emphasized that the conversation around Gary as the next contender is largely self-generated. I never see nobody talking about this guy like he deserves the next shot. It's only him and his wife talking about he deserves the next title shot. For Masvidal, Gary's physical gifts, his massive size for the division, are undercut by his fighting mentality and past vulnerabilities. He's already been rocked by Shavkat Rakhmonov, which I think is the most deserving at 170 pounds, Masvidal noted, pointing to the undefeated contender's decisive win over Gary. Despite acknowledging Usman's age, Masvidal's prediction was clear. Maybe he's pushing 40-year-old Usman, but I still see Usman beating the crap out of Ian Gary. Masvidal's defense of Usman isn't just about past rivalry, it's a commentary on a division at a crossroads. The path to Makhachev's first title defense is clouded with compelling yet conflicting arguments. On one side is the legacy path, championed by Makhachev himself, who has expressed interest in fighting the former longtime champion Usman. It's a super fight that offers a historic name, even if Usman's recent record, 1-3 in his last 4, doesn't scream top contender.
On the other side is the meritocracy path, filled with younger, hungrier fighters on blistering streaks. Shavkat Rakhmonov, now ranked above Gary at number 2, remains the boogeyman of the division, undefeated and having already beaten Gary. Michael Morales, also undefeated, announced himself as a title threat with a stunning first-round knockout of Sean Brady. And Carlos Prates, who holds a prior win over Gary, made perhaps the loudest statement of all by knocking out former champion Leon Edwards cold at UFC 322. The result is a perfect storm of conflicting narratives: past glory versus present form, champion's choice versus sporting merit, and loud self-promotion against a backdrop of more silent, destructive wins. While Gary talks his way into the conversation, fighters like Rakhmonov, Morales, and Prates are violently fighting their way into it, leaving the UFC with a difficult but enviable choice for its next welterweight blockbuster. The postponed wrestling super fight between legendary athlete Yoel Romero and UFC prospect Bo Nickal is back on, officially rebooked as the co-main event for Real American Freestyle 5 on January 10th in Sunrise, Florida. The highly anticipated matchup, originally slated for RAF 4, was scrapped when Nickal withdrew for undisclosed reasons, but Romero's dominant victory that night set the stage for its inevitable return. At 48 years old, Romero silenced any doubts about his enduring athletic prowess at RAF 4, delivering a stunningly dominant performance. He defeated former Bellator fighter Pat Downey via a flawless 10-0 pinfall to capture the interim RAF Light Heavyweight Championship. Immediately after his hand was raised, the Cuban icon used his famous catchphrase to call out the absent Nickal, declaring, "See you soon, boy." That promise has now been fulfilled, creating a classic generational clash for the unified RAF light heavyweight title. The main event of RAF 5 is another major crossover attraction, featuring former UFC interim welterweight champion Colby Covington facing former middleweight champion Luke Rockhold. This dual headliner format showcases RAF's growing ability to attract major combat sports names for its unique freestyle wrestling rule set. Adding to the event's buzz, another NCAA standout, Wyatt Hendrickson, used his RAF 4 victory platform to call for a high-profile matchup of his own. After defeating Mason Paris, Hendrickson took aim at the Paul brothers, specifically referencing Jake Paul's recent boxing match. "I was watching some highlights this morning. That Jake Paul guy looked like he was shooting more double legs than he was boxing. I want to see that man here," Hendrickson stated, also extending the challenge to Logan Paul. While a January booking seems unlikely given the short timeline and Jake Paul's recent injury, the call-out plants a seed for a future spectacle that blends wrestling credibility with mainstream celebrity. The rescheduling of Romero vs. Nickal solidifies RAF 5 as a must-watch event for wrestling aficionados and MMA fans alike. It pits Romero's otherworldly power and explosive veteran savvy against Nickal's impeccable NCAA pedigree and relentless pressure, a pure wrestling test with significant bragging rights in the combat sports world. With a loaded card featuring UFC veterans and hungry new stars, the promotion is positioning itself as a premier destination for elite, entertainment-driven grappling.